What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction. Back with another audio reaction to some live material from the 2024 double disc album Songs for a Nervous Planet, though I did want to say I'm on board with what Kim suggested, which is to say watching some of these live performances from the Tipping Point tour. So when I next come back around to video reactions, which should be this week, one of the video reactions will be a live reaction to Tears for Fears from this concert tour. And I don't know if specifically they're like our official videos that correspond to the exact recordings that we hear here, but I'll look forward to hearing people comment. And it's funny that I mentioned Kim. I went back and checked just because I wanted to see, recall what people had written when I reacted to My Demons, which is still probably my favorite track from the Tipping Point. And ultimately, I not only love the sonics and the sort of energetic and electronic vibe to it, but it's a tune that I've gone back to and just, randomly when I'm not shooting videos, just wanting to hear something in the background when I'm, working or eating or whatever. It's a tune that I've repeatedly gone back to. But I remember when I looked at the comments earlier, not only did I see a number of folks who've still been around, and indeed I think Amber was one who commented when I was, trying to parse out the lyrics and understand what I had heard. She mentioned, this is a song that addresses modern technology of surveillance and the way that, data is mined to, sort of put people in different categories and to invade the privacy of our modern lives. But I noticed that Kim hadn't commented, and I'm trying to remember, was this before you had first commented but had already started watching the channel? Or is it like has unfortunately happened sometimes where people write comments, especially longer ones, as Kim often writes, and YouTube's algorithms are just like, nope, I'm just going to remove that randomly without, informing me or without me even knowing that there was a comment. So I was trying to remember, because I do think I went through the Tipping Point first, right? I think that was the first album, because I started going through reactions to bands that I listened to in the 80s, and it came to my attention that Tears for Fears had just put out a new album for the first time in a while. It was like, oh my god, what great timing. So I think I did that, and then I jumped back to The Hurting, is that right? I'm trying to remember the chronology, and I think it was it Start of the Breakdown? I think that's the one that Kim first commented on. Am I right about that? Sorry to digress in this intro about such a, sort of self-referential, meta thought about the earlier reactions that I did to Tears for Fears on this channel. But as I went to shoot this, that's what came through my head. But in any case, My Demons, I love the sound. As someone who's long listened to Depeche Mode, is one of my favorite bands. It does give me a bit of that, dark synth pop Depeche Mode vibe, but with not only Tears for Fears voices, but their own flavor. It's, a similar territory as one of my favorite bands, but in the Tears for Fears way. And as I said, I think it remains my favorite track from the Tipping Point album, so I'm keen to hear this live. Once again, I will go through live video reactions for this Tears for Fears material from, the last year, or at least the recordings that theoretically correspond to the ones included on this double disc Songs for a Nervous Planet album. Let's listen to it. This is Tears for Fears doing a live performance of My Demons, a track from their 2022 album, The Tipping Point.
I am the demolition man, I am the smoking gun. Why is my name in lights when my name is spelled wrong? Only needs an attitude, a longitude, a latitude. They will always find you when your cell phone is on. The satellites in space, and smiles and charm and grace. The middleman, the butcher and his dog. Turn on my BDI, no need to wonder why. Go faster, young master, you're breathing disaster. These human hands, yeah, you touch. It's my demons, don't get out that much. shake-up, the makeup and the breakup, the bursting out the vein that brings the blood to the chest. Ain't got no appetite, fill up my knees and rise, so full of gasoline and the time is gone by. Don't leave me alone, I bring you the
Go faster, you're breathing, disaster. This needs human hands, need a human touch. It's not demons, don't get out that much.
What a routine, what a bit of trust. We're not one of you, you're not one of us. Grinding the bones, breathing the dust. We're not one of you, you're not one of us. What a bit of trust, what a bit of trust. We're not one of you, you're not one of us. Grinding the bones, breathing the dust. We're not one of you.
Go faster, you're master, you're breathing, disaster. This needs human hands, need a human touch. It's not demons, don't get out that much. Go faster, you're master, you're breathing, disaster. This needs human hands, need a human touch. It's not demons, don't get out that much. It's not demons, don't get out that much.
So good. It's such a great song. So, okay, I'll try to keep everything in mind that I was thinking during that. Number one, some of the lines are just very cleverly written, which, again, when I first heard the song, I caught some of the lines, but, didn't have the wherewithal to synthesize that, I think, into a clear understanding of my outro. And one of the great things about doing these reactions now for a few years is that not only do fans of the band who, have a longer term experience with them, help me pick up on lines that I missed or, sort of give interesting angles of interpretation that maybe don't occur to me. But the appreciation for songwriting in a longer discography starts to come into clearer focus the more songs I react to by a group. And now, having gone through a lot of Tears for Fears since the Tipping Point reactions, my sense for the cleverness of their writing has, of course, enhanced. And then secondarily, I talked about at the beginning how this song kind of gives me this, Depeche Mode synth pop vibe. It's actually like a little bit different than I was thinking. It reminds me of a song like Personal Jesus, which, again, that song is from Violator when they were moving maybe more away from their electronic synth pop sound toward a blending of that with their like rock blues, like electronic blues type of sound. And that was maybe the first phase of that. And for anyone interested in just hearing more about that in a detailed way, I just did a reaction on my Patreon to a documentary about that album. Nevertheless, as I was listening to this now, I was thinking like, oh, a better comparison would have been to a song like one from Violator, like one like Personal Jesus. Because again, you could hear the guitar. It's like a very central element of the sonic atmosphere in this one, but it still has that electronic sound at the beginning and that electric organ keyboard line, which I feel like stands out in this live performance, as much as anything. It's a really powerful and prominent feature of this live performance. I do love also that we hear both of them on vocals, and when Kurt does those more like emotional kind of sounding vocals, which I think he's doing in the background in the chorus or the latter half of the track, I think he just hits those amazingly. And when I reacted to Pale Shelter, a couple folks commented, I think Steve commented like, oh man, like Kurt still has that just incredible voice where you wouldn't believe that it's this long after they, originally wrote and sung that song. And I had a sense for both of them here in that regard. Just their vocals, again, comparing to Depeche Mode, I listen to modern Depeche Mode, and I still think Dave has a great voice, but I feel like you can hear the temporal distance and the change in his voice more than I hear from the Tears for Fears guys, even though, on a technical level, I'm sure you could say, oh, well, you can hear their voices a little different or a little older here, but it feels more faithful to the original vocal performances. And of course, this track, it's a bit different because it's a much more modern tune. But my point is, they still have surprisingly youthful voices, and they still sound like the Roland and Kurt from decades past as my ears and brain hear them. So yeah, a great tune, clever lines, really dynamic live performance. It sounds like the crowd, is very much into it. So it makes sense to start the second disc with a song like this, where it's one modern, it's one from the album that they're touring for, but one that I think captures a lot of what I've now heard makes them so good, having gone through albums before The Tipping Point, if that makes sense. I'm not even sure the parallel structure of that sentence works, but I think my meaning may be clear. In any case, a top performance of a great song. As I said, I'm looking forward to going through some video reactions, but I do think I'm also concurrently or simultaneously going to continue reacting in audio form here to the live performances on this disc, because I almost was unsure when I first looked. I was like, oh, break it down again, I want to react to that. And then what was the other one that I wanted to react to? Was it... Oh, my eyes really fail me. The Head Over Heels is on here, Shout is on here. Oh, Mad World, that's what it was. My first thought when I looked at the second disc was like, oh, I want to react to Mad World, because I'd heard that at some point they began performing it sort of in the vein of the Gary Jules performance of it, which is interesting to me, because when I first heard the Tears for Fears version, knowing that it was so different sonically and more energetic, and it made it hit differently, I then wondered what the performance will be like on this tour / live section of the Songs for a Nervous Planet album. So that one I'll probably do soon, but yes, ultimately I will do the video reactions to the live Tears for Fears and continued audio ones at the same time. So looking forward to it. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. Peace.